Welcome back to Home Ice with David Quinn. Michelle Gingras alongside Steve Valiquette, and head coach of the Rangers, David Quinn, joining us as well. Coach, just to jump back into that conversation that we were having before this, it took some time for your team to really find their rhythm this year. There were a lot of ups and downs, but the last month of the season, it really felt like they were hitting their stride. So from an outsider's perspective, we're looking at it and saying, wow, the Rangers are rolling. But I know, that's a journey to get to that place. So take us through just the ups and downs and how you arrived at where you are currently as a team.
Yeah, Michelle, I've said this before, when there was so much uncertainty going into our season, there was obviously maybe some, cautious optimism because of the signing of Panera and the trading of Trouba, drafting Kakko, and some of the guys we had coming back. But there was just so much uncertainty because we had so many new faces. And, I said this a lot, you don't have to have the most talent, you have to have enough talent. And then as a group, you have to acquire all these other characteristics. There's got to be the work ethic standpoint. There has to be leadership. There has to be resiliency. There has to be a care factor within the locker room. And that doesn't happen just when you throw 24 guys in a locker room and they're all wearing the same jersey. That has to be acquired through fighting through adversity, hard practices, winning hockey games, things of that nature. And it was crazy. Our schedule was so odd, playing 3 games in the first 17 days of the season and not really having a long road trip. And, we were putting along throughout the first few months, hovering around 500, thank God, staying above 500. But you could see it slowly happening. And I always refer to that game in Montreal where, we were down 4-0 early in the second period and came back to win that game. You could just feel it. And I remember going in the locker room between the first and second period, being down 3-0 and feeling really good about the way we were playing. And Steve, you've been in games where you play well and all of a sudden you're down 3-0. How did that happen? But you could just sense it. You could sense that, guys were looking around the locker room. They were feeling good about their performance individually. I think guys were feeling good about the guys they were surrounded with in the locker room, and they thought we could do this. And we went out and did it. And I think from that point on, it didn't happen immediately, but I think there was an inner belief in the locker room that we could have a pretty good hockey team. And I think through that, Michelle, I think what you saw was a team kind of bonding and coming together and becoming a true team. And I think you saw that after the new year where we felt very good after Christmas about what our chances were. And just, it was really fun to watch those last 2 months.
Coach, when you're measuring your team off the ice, it's been said before that high performers want to be around high performers and not mediocre performers. And a lot of times those values don't intertwine well with the team. So you got to get that guy off the bus and keep everybody together. When you value things statistically, internally, do you look at things like Chris Kreider being in front of the net for this many scoring opportunities and value that, and then pick your players sometimes by looking at things in particular like that?
Yeah, for sure. And all those little things, Steve, within the structure of anything that you're doing. I mean, okay, just because you're there, okay, the coach tells me to be here. It's not just being there. It's what you're doing while you're there. It's the little things. And, to your point about Chris Kreider, and it's the thing I love about guys like Chris Kreider and Mika Zibanejad and Artemi Panarin, our top player, they want to get better and they're coachable. There's not any defiance. They listen. They want to be the best player they can possibly be. And one of the things we actually talked to Kreider about was, being more physical in small areas. When you get at the net area, you be the initiator of the contact. You create more space for yourself. And, you watch his last 2 months, and those are the things he was doing. Not only was he at the net, but he was there with a presence. He was there with a purpose. And sometimes those are the little things that you have to continuously remind your players about. But the great thing for us is that they're so receptive to those things. And like you said, those are the things that add up. It's not just being where you're supposed to be. It's what you're doing while you're there.
Yeah.
You can't just be this, I'm here, coach told me I'm here. You got to have a little bit of passion and you got to be there with a purpose.
Obviously, yeah, doing those little things consistently can make a difference on the ice. But were there any moments that you noticed that really bonded your team off the ice? A lot of people talk about that mom's trip. I know Strome's mom read the lineup a couple times. Stuff like that. When you look back as a coach, you got to feel like those were really special moments.
It's funny, that was certainly a lot of fun for us. And Stromer's mom did a heck of a job. And, she's petitioning to travel on every trip since she's 2-0 in the lineup. But Stromer will not have anything of that. But, and this, Steve, I mean, there's not one moment, Michelle. I just think of all the moments throughout the season. And once we started traveling, guys were able to spend more time together and guys were able to go to dinner. I know it sounds cliche-ish, but it is so true. The more time you spend together, the better you get to know your teammates. And more so than any team in the league, I really feel we needed that more than anybody because we had 7 or 8 new faces. And like I said, there was a lot of uncertainty of what do we have here? You know, we just didn't know. And, you know, you're sitting in that locker room and you're not sure how good can we be? And then as the season evolved, not only do we say, oh, geez, he's a pretty good player. He's better than I thought he was going to be. You kind of get to, he's a better guy than I thought he was going to be. I know him better. And all of a sudden it just kind of unfolded. And I think the tip of the iceberg was that mother's trip when you bring the mothers on board and everybody gets to spend time with their family and see how people interact. I just think that really puts yourself in a better position to be a closer team and to give yourself an opportunity to maybe make that next jump as an organization, as a team.
That's what I saw from my standpoint, Quinny. I just felt like you guys said to each other, why not us? And I always like when you say that you have to earn your confidence. And what I look to, there's really 3 things when I'm coaching, and I do a lot of coaching in the summertime, a lot of collegiate athletes. I always look to 3 things. Can the athlete learn how to work hard? A lot of times I have to explain that to them. Are they coachable, or are they going to be defiant and stubborn? And the third one for me is just, I don't like it when guys get frustrated. Now there's an element of quitting or getting frustrated and then development stops dead in its tracks. Those are the 3 that I rely on. Are there 3 things that you rely on typically when you're working in player development?
Well, if you're looking for a job, those are 3 great areas that I'm looking for. So, but those things are so true, Steve. And, you know, for me, development, everyone thinks development is a straight path forward. And a lot of times development is moving backwards a little bit, is taking that step back. You're going to get frustrated. And how do you manage that? Like you said, all these guys are used to being great. Well, all of a sudden they're at a level now where they're going to be asked to do things they probably never had to do before. And they're not going to be good at it right away. And how are they going to handle trying to do something they've never done and not be successful at it? That's a big piece of development, to your point. And, you know, it's not a straight line. And, you hear all these questions about, you know, our young players, Kakko and Howden and Hedel, and when things aren't going well for them, people throw up these red flags of they're not developing. Well, no, sometimes developing is going backwards, and people have to realize that. The other thing with development is you really have to measure, you know, small gains. You're not going to go from, you know, A to Z. You got to go A to B to C to D. I always say that if you make 24 mistakes on Monday and 23 on Tuesday, you had a good Tuesday. And people have to keep that in mind. You know, we're a very impatient society. You know, I was actually talking to Michael Haley about getting into coaching when he got done, and he said, "What's any advice you have?" I said, "Yeah, buy a huge barrel of patience, because that's what you're going to need more than anything if you're coaching." And you've got to have the ability to measure small progress and not think of what you envision the player or team ultimately being. You've got to be happy with that incremental progress.
Coach, I feel like I've seen you say before that the biggest challenge for some of these players coming into the NHL is that they don't understand what hard work really is yet. They've, as you just mentioned, you know, they've been the best of the best at every level, and coming into the NHL really is just another animal. So is this just one of those things that some guys, the learning curve is steeper and it just takes a little bit of time to catch up to that NHL level?
Yeah, it does, because Michelle, really, you're asking guys to, do things they've never had to do before. And, you know, their success, a lot of them, has been just, I used to joke with some of the players in Ann Arbor when you had the Phil Ketzels of the world, you should get down on your knees and thank the good Lord because he blessed you with more talent than everybody else. Well, now everybody at this level has talent. And now what are you going to do with it? And you've got to put forth another level of effort. And that's what I said. These guys aren't lazy by any stretch of the imagination, but they just haven't been pressed to work to a level that they never had to work to before. And, you know, again, you watch that Last Dance with Michael Jordan. I mean, just watch his drive and his work ethic. And, you know, you'd be hard pressed to find a lot of athletes in any sport that had that type of work ethic. And, you know, your work ethic is relative. It's relative to what everybody else is doing around you and within the league. And, you know, that's something that every player has to learn in this league.
All right, it's time for another break. When we come back, Coach is going to take some social media questions that we posed on Twitter. That's all coming back when Home Ice with David Quinn returns.